Hello, welcome one and all. It is Wednesday, August 18th, which means it's time for another live here on the Book of Faces. I'm Jenny Guy, your host and Mediavine Senior Director of Marketing. How's everybody doing today? Summer is coming to an end. So across America, we've got kids going back to school, either virtual or in person. And today's mind-boggling fact is that another season of Mediavine Summer of Live has flown by, and we are here today for our season finale of our fourth season, which is also equally mind-boggling. It has been a wild and wonderful ride that I've been privileged to take with you all, so thank you. Now, we're going to close this season out with a bang. No show for content creators would be complete without spending a good amount of time covering today's topic. SEO, or search engine optimization, that acronym that makes the interwebs go round. It's an essential skill for anyone who wants to make a living on the World Wide Web. And as such, there are countless experts, courses, books, webinars, social posts, all promising to make you a lot of money and an expert in the topic. And I would say at least probably half the time, they're offering conflicting advice. So that's a lot of fun for all of us in our pocketbook. So what is fact? What's fiction? How do you know where to go for reliable information and sound educational advice? Say hello to my little friends. That was my Al Pacino from Scarface. It was good, right? One of my guests today is a familiar face around here, Mediavine co-founder and CEO, Eric Hochberger. Eric, welcome.
Hello, Jenny. Fun to be back a couple of weeks later. Yeah.
I know. We're so much older and wiser now than we were 2 weeks ago. And while this is his first time on a Mediavine Live, my other guest is no stranger to most content creators. Mike Pearson is the founder of Stupid Simple SEO, where he helps bloggers scale their traffic and income with SEO. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Jenny, for having me on. That was quite the introduction video. I am pumped to be here.
We are pumped to have you. We are excited. Everybody, this is going to be, we were knowing this was going to be a wild and crazy live. We are ready for your comments and questions. We will get to as many of them as we can. But what we are going to start with is both of my esteemed guests today contributed some popular SEO myths that they hear a lot when they're talking with their clients, when they're in the Facebook groups, everywhere. So we're going to raise the issues, and have a discussion about them. But like I said, if you have a question, drop it in the comments. And I'm going to start out actually by asking you a question, which is, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to SEO? Drop that in the comments, say hi, and let's get going. First of all, this one is from Mike. And I'm going to we'll start with, you know what? Here's what we'll do. I'll share Mike's myth, have Eric start, and then have Mike weigh in. We'll do that. Mike's first myth is site speed is a crucial ranking factor. All right, Eric, this is tailor-made for you.
Emphasis on crucial.
On crucial. Okay, then yes, I would agree. It is a myth. It is a crucial ranking factor. It is one of many signals, as I think Mike will probably go and bust this myth. And if you look in the top 10 results, you can generally see some not fast sites that sneak their way in there. If you're a food blogger, you'll often see, Food Network up there that's atrocious. And there's a lot of examples that you can see that clearly it can't be the biggest factor if horribly slow sites on horrible sites, well, depending on your definition, I guess, can still rank in the top 10. But my opinion is generally, as bloggers, we don't necessarily have the luxury of something like a Food Network, that maybe we don't have the same kind of authority that they have. So for us, I think that's why we all obsess about things like page speed, and maybe we do a little too much, and that's pretty funny coming from me.
Well, I think you hit the word with obsession. That's kind of where I was going with this. So obviously, page speed is important. I think everyone should strive to have, the fastest loading site with the best post. And, we all want our sites to load fast. What I was trying to get at with this is, and I think you hinted at it earlier, is that, I think what I've seen in various Facebook groups, my own groups, is bloggers like obsessing, and I mean obsessing about their page speed and trying to get a fraction of a second off, and spending weeks on this, or spending thousands of dollars hiring people when they could be doing other stuff, which I think is more important, like finding good keywords, writing content, maybe building links, like the main pillars, in my opinion, of SEO. And again, coming from where I'm coming from, I work mainly with bloggers who don't have a team of people who could, they don't have a site speed guy. It's like they're doing all this stuff themselves. So when we're talking about like 80-20 SEO or, the big levers that we want to pull, I would maybe focus on site speed for like a day, maybe try to get it as fast as you possibly can. If you want to think about, hiring some help, it's obviously something we want to do. It's one of the few things that Google has gone on the record, right? They don't always say this is a ranking factor. They've said it's like a tiebreaker, maybe. Where I was going with this is just, if you have limited time to work on your blog, I would, spend a little time on your site speed, but I would rather publish 20 posts in a week than worry about shaving a half a second off my site speed is basically what I was getting at.
All very reasonable. And I think that one of the problems with people, quote, working on site speed is that oftentimes it's something that's out of the realm of control or expertise for a lot of content creators. So it can feel like spinning wheels. Is that something you guys would agree with? Like sometimes if you don't have somebody to go do things for you, is that accurate?
It's a very technical, and I don't pretend to be, I think I consider it a kind of a subsection of like SEO expertise. I am not a site speed, like I cannot go into your back end of WordPress and fix your site speed. Like literally I couldn't do that. I could recommend someone. It's very technical, like even for me. So I think people get very confused. They plug their site into the Google Speed Insights and you're getting a list of 72 errors that don't even make any sense. So that's like, it's so overwhelming. But I think the problem is people think it's so important that they have to fix every single error on that list. So I think that adds to it for sure.
Eric, how about you? As somebody who is, I don't want to say like overly obsessed. I will say mildly obsessed with site speed.
This happens, I think, to every engineer that goes down the page speed rabbit hole. The problem is you do want to correct every little thing that Page Speed Insights is telling you. And I unfortunately know how to. And if I don't, I'm going to Google it and figure out how to do it. And I'm going to drive myself nuts until I do. So you can test the Hollywood gossip and you can see there's still missing attribute on height and width. But other than that, everything is now passing with flying colors. But that thing haunts me in my sleep. But yeah, it can become an obsessive thing. Obviously, I'm going to take a quick moment to plug Trellis. Something like that does make it a little more accessible to most publishers. But yeah, if you don't have the technical knowledge, that's not going to be the best use of your time. If you need to spend more than a few days doing it and you're pulling out your hair, that's a few days you weren't writing new content, you weren't doing keyword research, you weren't doing things that were actually going to lead to more traffic. I do see obviously a handful of publishers that are unbelievably knowledgeable at this kind of page speed stuff, but most of them have really seems to outsource. So if you can find someone who can do it, I think it's worth your time because it is a ranking factor, as Google says. But yeah, don't obsess. I like that.
So the most important thing then here is in controlling your site speed sounds more like what you're not adding to your site. Is that accurate? Like really monitoring and guiding the things you're adding to your site that could be slowing you down. Yeah.
So, that's one of the problems I even see with Trellis. Like after a publisher installs it and they might have 96 or 99 scores, and we see all the unbelievable stuff that they'll publish in the group, then they'll go and install some random tracking pixel or some new thing that some influencer network sent them, and it will tank their entire page speed. That's the other unfortunate thing. If you hire someone, it isn't a set it and forget it. It's a thing you do have to maintain. So it is a complex beast.
Okay, we have about 500 questions already. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here with the most recent one, which was, is Trellis available to us all now, says Amber. Kippy says, please open Trellis for more bloggers. And Diana says, I don't worry about speed because of Mediavine and Trellis. So Eric, can you give us a little good news about Trellis quickly, and then we'll go to the next big topic.
Everyone who has applied for the beta, and if you haven't done it yet, is getting an invite by the end of this month. So apply now. You will be able to get Trellis if you want it. So hopefully no more Trellis questions related to release dates.
We'll move forward. Okay, Jan, this is Jan's latest. This is related to something Mike just said. So I'm now wondering, is it better to post 20 posts in a week or space them out to be 20 in a month?
I think this might be on one of my myths as well, because I always get this question. Should I space my content out? Is it important how much content I publish? And like the only answer that I really can give is my goal is to publish as much high quality content as I can full stop. That's it. Whether, and every blogger situation is different. Some people are working on their site by themselves part-time, and maybe you can get one post out a week, then do that, right? Some people have a team of writers. Like I have a new niche site, and I mean, we're pumping out 30,000-40,000 words of content a month, but that's because I have people helping me, right? So it's going to depend on your situation. So is it better to post 20 in a week or space them out? If I had 20 drafts ready to go, like in good condition, and they were high quality, I would hit publish on them today, right away. I want them in the index. I want Google crawling them. I want them out as fast as possible. I don't believe, and this is my opinion, that there's any benefit, and you hear this all the time, should I space it out? Google likes consistent publishing. I don't know, maybe we can get into that a little later, but to specifically answer the question, Jan, as soon as it's ready, I'm hitting publish every time. I'm not going to wait.
Eric, weigh in on the same topic, please.
No, I'm very similar. It's funny. So I came from, obviously, the Hollywood Gossip was our main site, and that is you publish it, 5 minutes before it's ready, and you fix it after it goes live. Like it's all about speed on that site. Now then you come into the blogging world where everyone's like, oh, I only post at 2:00 on Mondays and Wednesdays, and that is my time. So I think there has to be a medium between the two that you should find. Obviously, with your social media, you maybe don't want to flood people with all 20 of those posts at once, but separate that in your mind, your newsletter, your social media, and all that from your blog. Google wants it as soon as they can get it. So give it to Google as soon as they can, and worry about your other ways that you present stuff to your readers and space it out there. Because I have bad news for you. Most people aren't coming to your homepage. Most people are coming directly to your articles. So don't obsess whether you put 20 things up at once. Google won't. The only caveat to that is you want Google to think that you continuously update your site. So don't post 20 things now and never again for the rest of the year, or you'll probably hurt your crawlability. But I don't think that's really the question that Jan was asking. So as soon as you can.
Mike, follow up on that?
No, Eric hit, and I'm always come at this from like an SEO angle or people finding me through search, but Eric raises a good point. If you truly have and this is not the way that I build my sites, but if you have a following, like you have a true following of people who are coming to your homepage every day, then you're right. It's not going to make sense to blast them with 20 new articles. So that's an important caveat. If that's how you operate, or if you truly have like a brand and people are coming to your homepage, that makes total sense, and something that I should have said. Just know that everything that I'm saying is usually coming strictly from an SEO point of view, but that's a good call out from Eric.
Okay. This is another question for everyone, and I can't even specify who it's come from because it's come from about 10 people. So guys, cheap or free, best keyword tools, keyword finding tools. What do you recommend? Can you pull a rabbit out of a hat? About 10 rabbits out of a hat. Eric, I'll start with you here on that one. Sorry.
Did you see Mike's face? I wanted him to answer it.
You go first. Yeah.
Personally, I use SEMrush. So that is the opposite of free. That is probably the most expensive of the tools. At the end of the day, they're all getting their data from the same place. So you don't need to go with the most expensive one. I like SEMrush because it offers a lot of other tools that we use in competitive analysis and cool things. If you don't need all that, I don't know, I hear key search is pretty good. There's some definitely cheaper alternatives. If you really need the only one that I know that's free, that's the Google keyword planner tool that you basically sign up for an AdWords account. And that's going to have the most limited of the data it's going to provide you, but it is technically free. Or you can just go around and use your 10 searches a month or whatever the tools give you. I think it's worth the investment and not trying to go for free.
Mike.
Yeah, no, my answer is pretty much the same. So personally, I always like to, and the reason I was making that face, because I try to be cognizant of costs, right? Because at least in my world, bloggers are trying to, they're looking for a good deal, which makes total sense. But I always like to, I use Ahrefs, which is basically, with SEMrush, those are the two, and they have very similar capabilities. And it's not cheap, right? The small plan is $99 a month. The plan I use is $180 a month, and I'm not suggesting that anyone should pay that much for a keyword tool, but just to be transparent. So I use Ahrefs. I obviously think it's worth it, but I run a lot of sites and we do a lot of, I'm in there literally every single day. Eric said they have the competitive tool. They've got a couple other really cool tools that I'm just like obsessed with. So on the high end, it's SEMrush or Ahrefs, in that $30 a month range. I think Uber Suggest is actually decent. They've gotten a lot better. I think they actually have a lifetime thing if you want to look into it. I bought it just because I like to play with tools. I think, don't quote me, they're at $30 a month, and it's gotten a lot better. It's pretty good. Key Search is my recommendation for cheap tools. I think it's don't quote me again, $13 a month or something super cheap, and it has, frankly, a lot of the functionalities of these other tools. It's a little clunkier, a little slower. The UI is not as good. It doesn't have all like the features. But if you're looking to save money and you're looking to invest in a tool, Key Search would be my top low cost option.
Okay, we threw out a ton of suggestions. We've got people using Uber. We've got people using Keywords Everywhere, Key Search. We've got suggestions for many different things. We have another recurring question that actually was one of Mike's myths. So I'm going to address a bunch of you at the same time while hitting this myth. Word count / all SEO posts have to be 2,000 plus words. We're going to start with Eric on this one and then go to Mike.
Oh, man. No, they most certainly don't. What is my favorite website? Is Today a Jewish Holiday? Ranks with one word on the homepage. I have to use it a lot. It's sad. I shouldn't admit that. But anyways, that ranks #1 for that search term. One word, yes or no. That's all it really has on the page. So no, you don't need 500 to 2,000 words. But generally, longer content is going to have more long tail keywords and help you pick up more related search. But to win the actual search term you want, no. If you just have good quality content, it does not need to be 500 to 2,000 words. Generally, the reason I encourage it, well, obviously, from an ad perspective, it allows readers to stay engaged longer on your site, read more content, make you more money. That's all wonderful. But also, from an SEO perspective, it's going to provide more long tail. So it doesn't have to be to win the term, but it'll certainly help you win other terms.
Mike.
Yeah, this is like my favorite. I was actually on a podcast last week and this question came up. It's like my favorite SEO topic because I think, when maybe 5 years ago when, I don't know, bloggers were getting a little into SEO, it used to be every post had to be 500 words, right? That's what it was. Every post has to be 500 words. Then Brian Dean at Backlinko came out with this study. The average post on the first page of Google is 1,890 words, right? So this is where the 2,000 word thing, right? People will see a graph, they'll see the headline, and then it's like every Facebook group. I heard for SEO, every post has to be 2,000 words, right? Like, of course, that's not true, right? The way that we should think about this is what is like the intent behind the search, right? Like, think about why is someone searching for something in Google in the first place. And the example that I gave last week, and I'm going to give it again, I'm sorry if you hear that podcast, but right, if someone's Googling, right, how to tie your shoe, right? Do they need 2,500 words of written content, right? Is that going to answer their question? Is that going to solve their problem? Or would a better post be like a bunch of pictures in a video in like 50 words, right? Because that for that search, for that keyword, for that intent, you don't need 2,500 words. It just doesn't make any sense. You're not helping the user. I think Google can figure this out by now. If you Google that keyword, it's like a WikiHow illustration in a ton of YouTube videos, right? So don't think about it in terms of should every post be X, Y, Z. It's more like, what are you writing about? What is the keyword? What is the topic? And what is the intent behind, why is someone searching for that? And what are they looking like? What do they expect on the other end of that search? And then on the other hand, if someone is searching for, how do I save for retirement, right? Well, that's probably not a 50-word answer. That's probably, maybe that's 5,000 words with like many, 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 many subtopics. So it depends on what the keyword is. But I when I was looking at this as part of the questions, what I was going to say is Eric makes a really good point. The caveat is if it's a list post, this is where the long tail comes in, right? The different ways to lose weight, right? If you have a list of 5, maybe that's fine. But if I have a list of 50, then I'm going to get that long tail, right? For this, like if maybe I put like the keto diet on my list and someone didn't, and someone is long tailing how to lose weight on the keto diet, then I have a chance to rank for that long tail, right? Which is where the length arguably can give you a benefit, right? Because I'm writing about 50 subtopics. This guy's writing about 5. And if someone attaches a long tail to their search and it hits one of my 50 on my list, then I have a chance to rank and they don't. So I agree with that. And I think part of where that comes in, and I think that's primarily with list posts, but really, what is the user, put yourself in the shoes of your user. What do they expect to find on the other end? Do they want 50 words and a bunch of pictures, or do they want 5,000 words?
I mean, I just think that Eric owes you a big debt of gratitude for bringing up a site that is more embarrassing than is today a Jewish holiday or not. How to tie your shoes. That Google search.
I was going to ask what is the intent behind that search? Now we have to know.
Is that a thing that is that a real life example, Mike? Is someone Googling?
Well, I'm just giving like a very short answer, right? I mean, it probably doesn't need to be 3,000, or maybe it does. I don't know.
Oh, we just got, here's a question that I'm going to throw out there. We'll let Mike start on this one. Robert asked this: can ads slow down your website ranking? How do you find the sweet spot in terms of optimizing for income? Eric takes a sip of coffee. We'll let Mike start out.
How am I starting out on this one? This is not my expertise. Listen, the whole, maybe not the whole point, at least the people that I work with, the whole reason we're creating insights, we're creating content, we're trying to rank, we're trying to get traffic, because we want to make money, right? So of course I want ads on my site. I want affiliates on my site. So do ads slow down your site? Yes, they do. But this is where we come in with site speed, right? This is exactly, and I'm not, Robert, I'm not going after your specific question, but this is what I'm talking about, where it's like, I'm afraid to make money with my site because I think it's going to slow it down, right? Like the goal is to rank and get traffic in order to make money. The goal is not to have the fastest website in the world, right? So I know that doesn't specifically answer the question, but from a mindset, like perspective angle, this is kind of what I'm talking about. So can ads slow down your website? Yes. Can they slow down your ranking? I don't really think so. If you're with Mediavine, you're fine, right? Let's put it that way. But Google will say, and if you go through the search evaluator guidelines, whatever it is, like Google acknowledges in those guidelines that websites make money by having ads. It's totally fine to have ads. You don't want to blast them above the fold and block out all of your content, right? And again, this is not my place to talk about this. This is more Eric's angle. But how do you find the sweet spot in terms of optimizing for income? You put your ads on Mediavine because they're going to do a really good job. But can ads slow down your site? Yes, but have you seen Forbes? Forbes ranks all over the place. And again, authority is a big place, but don't be afraid to have ads because it's going to hurt your site speed. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Okay, Eric.
Put this guy in the payroll. Look at this. That was perfect. That's all we needed. I mean, that is basically going to be the summary. Like Google has the loosest definitions of what you need to do if you have ads running, and it's don't put them above the fold and have more content than you have ads. Basically follow the Coalition for Better Ad Standards is what they tell you in their starter guide. So like, don't run an insane number of ads. So if you're with Mediavine, we won't let you. So it's okay. We control the placement of your in content based on a frequency, and none of those frequency percentages are higher than Google would ever penalize you for. And we don't even do ads above the fold unless you really want them. So you would be hard pressed to have Mediavine ads hurt your rankings. Yes, they do impact page speed, which is why you should turn on, if you're with Mediavine, all the optimized ads for page speed settings. If you're not, make sure your provider can do that for you, which is basically the idea of make sure your ads don't slow down your core web vitals. Those are the main ways in which Google determines speed. So if your ads are not impacting your core web vitals, and you don't have a ton of ads above the fold, then no, they're not going to impact your ranking. So optimize towards making money. That's what we recommend.
And Eric just tossed this in, so we're going to jump back to one of the big myths. He said the CWV word, core web vitals, that term that everyone's been talking about it, not only in the SEO world, not only in the content creation world, they're talking about it literally everywhere, anyone on the internet world. So I want to talk about how important is core web vitals? How important are they? Are they a tiebreaker? What impact do they have on your ranking, Mike?
So I think the latest that I saw on was it Search Engine Roundtable said that at first Google said it was a tiebreaker. Now they're saying it's a little bit more than a tiebreaker, but it's not important than relevance, and they always use that word. So the way that I look at this is the same way that I look at site speed because they're somewhat intertwined. I'm not going to tell you to not, try to pass it, right? Obviously, we want a fast site. We want to pass Core Web Vitals. If you can't do it by yourself, think about having someone help you out, right? And this is the thing, and it's tough to give advice on this kind of stuff because every site, literally every page is different, right? I can't, right? You have to have someone come into your site and analyze your site, right? Because depending on what you have on your page, you're going to get different messages and different results and different scores in Web Vitals. So it's like almost impossible to give like a broad, helpful explanation on how to improve them that's going to fit everybody because it really depends on your specific page. At a high level, again, it's the same answer I'm going to give on page speed. Google has said it's a ranking factor. It's probably a small one now. Who knows if it'll be a more important rank factor. It's never going to be more important than your content, than your relevance, than your backlinks, in my opinion, ever. But it's one of those things like, yes, you should try to work on your site to pass those because Google is literally telling us we should do it.
Yes. And the majority of them, from what I've seen, are just kind of common sense things that you want to have a better website experience for your viewers.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's true. Yeah.
Eric, Core Web Vitals.
Yeah, no, I mean, the page experience algorithm, as Mike said, is basically a little bit more than a tiebreaker. So I don't know what that puts it in the signal rankings, but certainly right below all the ones that you mentioned. Again, though, it's similar to page speed, though it encompasses more than just page speed. What I love about them, for the first time ever, we have a number, and it's actually a pass-fail with Google and not an arbitrary thing, which is 99% of other Google things. So it is fun to be able to get that green. But no, it's not going to have a huge impact on your site. We got, I don't know, the Hollywood Gossip and Food Fanatic and all of our O&Os, and something like 74%, I think, of Trellis sites are passing it. And there hasn't been a significant bump yet, but Google has said that it's going to be kind of slow ramp up. So we'll see. I mean, I think similar to page speed, don't obsess over it. If you can't pass on your own, your time will be better spent doing other things. But if you're able to afford someone to help, or, I'm going to be the worst shill ever for this thing, Trellis, do it. Like if you can pass in a way that is not going to prohibit you from running the rest of your business, do it, but don't obsess.
Okay. This is a great question. It's coming from Gloria Dugan. What is a good keyword volume to look at to get traffic when you're starting out? Let's go with Mike on this one.
That Gloria, that name sounds very familiar. I think Gloria is in my program. Come on, Gloria, we don't look at keyword volume. So I don't look at volume. That's not how I kind of do keyword research. And this is where having a good tool, and the tools are estimates, let's be clear, but it gives us some kind of guidance. SEMrush and Ahrefs have metrics on traffic, like how much traffic is this page getting. And again, it's an estimate. Let's be 100% clear, but it gives us some way to prioritize, right? So just to give a little bit more of an explanation, in SEMrush, you can plug a page into the tool, and it's going to estimate it's getting X amount of traffic from Google per month. It's usually on the low end. So the reason that I don't really look at keyword volume is because we've talked about this earlier. A single post can rank for literally thousands of different keywords, like literally thousands of keyword variations. So if you're only looking at one keyword and its search volume, you're getting 5%, maybe 10% of the total picture on the traffic potential for that keyword, right? So because most people or most bloggers, when they're doing this type of keyword research, they have one main keyword in mind, right? They'll put the keyword into a tool. It'll say 260 searches, and then they'll say, is that good? And there's like no way to answer that, right? Because again, a post that's talking about that keyword is also naturally going to rank for hundreds and potentially thousands of different long tail keywords. So the 260 doesn't really mean anything because we're only looking at 20% of that tail. So to answer your question, I don't have a keyword volume. Like, I mean, I look at it in Ahrefs. I mean, if it's a 10, good, right? That's something. It's if it shows up in the tool, it's probably good enough. I'm more looking at the competition. Like, that's a better question to ask. Who's ranking on page one, and can I compete with them? Right? That's more important to me than volume. Strictly because of Google is not going to just give you traffic for one keyword. They're going to give you traffic for 500 related keywords.
Excellent. Eric, your take on this one.
No, very similarly. Do an incognito or private window search of the term you're trying to win and just look at who's in the top 10. If it's a bunch of people that you'd be like, wow, I'll never be able to win against them, don't go after the term. I don't care what the search volume is. If it's a bunch of people you're like, my site is way better than this, authority-wise, not just necessarily your opinion, then go after that term. I wouldn't stress as much about the number either. And again, I think that's a great way of looking at it. If it shows up, that generally means you're on the right path to the keyword. And so a lot of times we'll use it to figure out what you should name a post. Maybe you already have a recipe you're making, and there might be a way that people search it that you don't know about. It's a good way to relatively compare things. Like, are people looking for crock pots or slow cookers? I don't know. You'd have to go check the two of them and see which one has more search volume, but use both because you can always rank for both. So that's the idea. Like, are you on the right path? So if it shows up, that's a good way of looking at it. That means it's at least people besides you are searching for it.
Okay, this is a great question from Irene. What are the best SEO practices for updating old posts? We're going to start with Eric on that one.
So the one thing I hate more than, I don't know why this is like my biggest pet peeve, are people that republish. So they delete a post and then re-upload it to Google. Google's not dumb. Don't treat Google like they're dumb. You can just update the existing post. That's okay to do. We do it all the time on the Hollywood Gossip, and one of the things we love to do is make sure you actually put the date inside the post. Google loves fresh content, especially since that's a news site, and it will always show up as this has been updated 5 minutes ago. And we don't ever delete on the Hollywood Gossip and republish. I know a lot of bloggers do that, or they just change the publish that date so it pops back up. I think there's better ways to do that. I'd look for a plugin that gets it back into your feed. You do want to get that post back into your homepage for sure, to be able to send back kind of like sculpture page rank towards it. So I agree with why some people republish, but I wouldn't republish when you're updating. I would go and update the existing content. And I know a lot of people are always like, oh, this is ranking, I don't want to touch it. I love breaking stuff. Try to optimize it. In worst case scenario, you can always roll back. WordPress and most other CMSs will have a way for you to revert. If somehow you destroy the essence of your post by adding to it, you can always go back. Just watch your rankings on it.
Mike, same question to you.
I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing, that people would publish a new post. Like, when you were talking about that, apparently that is, I had no idea. But yeah, definitely don't just create a new post. You're going to lose arguably lose all of the traction and rankings that you had on the old or existing post. So yes, obviously we want to keep the post published, or don't delete it. Don't do a brand new post. And the way that I look at updating old content is the same way that I would look at if I had keyword researched a brand new article, right? I would look at it, especially if this is something maybe you published a while ago or it wasn't optimized for SEO, and you're coming at it from an angle of, all right, I need to kind of redo this. It's the same thing that I would do if I was creating a brand new piece of content, right? We talked about, do I have a chance to rank for this? Although arguably, if it's already on your site, you're going to want to leave it. Are you actually targeting a main primary keyword? Is your post matching the user intent? This is like, I think one of the most important parts of SEO that a lot of people overlook is like, does your post actually answer the question or the problem that's being posed in the search? And the best way to do that is to just Google your keyword and look at the top 3 results and see what those, like, what are they answering? How are their posts structured? So I look at it from a user intent angle, potentially a word count angle, just to get an idea of again, what are the top 3 sites doing in terms of word count? Are you in that range? But yeah, just generally, like, I would treat it the same way that I would treat a brand new post. The other thing I would say is that if I was doing like an audit, I'm not sure if this is where this question is going. If I had old, irrelevant, crappy content on my site and it wasn't getting traffic, I would not only not have any problem deleting that post, I would recommend deleting that post. Again, if it's has nothing to like, some bloggers, they've been blogging for 5 years and their first 10 posts were terrible. Let's be honest. So if you have content on your site that's old, it's not relevant, it's not good, it's not getting traffic, it doesn't have any backlinks, that kind of stuff, I would definitely think about auditing your old stuff and deleting it, updating it, which is this question is asking, potentially merging it with another post if you have a similar post on that topic. But it's not to get off topic too much, but it's super important. And Google has gone on the record saying this, that they are grading your site as a whole, right? Like top down, right? So if you have a blog and you've got 100 posts on it and you just learned SEO and 20 of your posts are good, right? They're SEO optimized, they're actually good posts. And maybe your older stuff is just not that good just because you didn't know what you were doing. Google is grade your site on the whole, right? So those 80 posts, I don't want to say they're holding it against you, but they're factoring it into your blog as a whole when they're grading the overall quality of your site. So you want to think about that older content you might have on your site that maybe, again, was published a while ago that might not be your best stuff, and think about updating it or improving it, potentially getting rid of it.
Okay, we're coming back to that because that was actually a question that was asked way up high on deleting old content. Okay. And it's something that Eric has a blog post on that I believe he might disagree with a little bit. So 1 second. But when we started talking on this subject, what about changing the publish date if it's a substantial change, says Ben Taylor. Eric, yeah?
So there are two different things. There's publish dates and then there's modified dates. And Google actually asks you to put both of them in your schema. Publish date and modified date. You shouldn't be changing the publish date. You should be changing the modified date if there's a substantial update. That would be Google's best practices when they talk about dates. They have an entire article on it. They have a schema thing about it. So I will still say no. And that's the republishing thing that I was referring to before. I don't like changing publish dates because to me, that is lying to Google, and that is the best way to get in trouble with our good friends at Google.
I don't know if anybody else out there is a Hamilton fan, but when Eric earlier was talking about how Google is not dumb, I was 100% going, they looked at Google like they were stupid. They're not stupid. And I don't know if that was anyone else, but that was happening to me. Okay, Irene said, Mike, should you re-index in Google Search Console when you update?
Yeah, this is another common one. So look, my answer is no, because I don't think there's a need to do it. Like literally, Google's like the most valuable company in the world. Their entire business model is indexing your content. Like that's their job. That's all. Like that's entirely how they are built and they make money, is because they go out and they crawl your site. So I know some people they publish it and they're so excited and they want to get it indexed in Google, and so they submit it to Search Console. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it's not something that I do, so it's not something that I recommend, because I do not think it's necessary. If Google's not indexing your content, it's not because you're not submitting in Search Console. It's because you might have other issues on your hands. So no, I do not. I mean, to me, I think it's a waste of time, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't do that.
Okay, Eric, same question to you. Are we re-indexing in Google Search Console when you do a significant update?
Again, look at Google as...
sorry. I thought it was on a new post, but go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you want them to come quicker, then yes, you can go in the Search Console and update it. But my advice is generally always, if you're linking to the content and you have a proper sitemap set up, which I can almost guarantee you do if you're running something like Yoast or another SEO plugin, Google will already get the signals to say that this post has been updated, and they will re-index it on their own. I would not stress about doing that. Again, you have better uses of your time. But if there's something you changed and you need it updated right away, sure, go ahead. It's not going to hurt you.
Okay, let's go back to the deleting, because we've got questions from multiple people saying, how do you delete content correctly. Jennifer says, how do you talk about the steps? Can you talk about the steps to deleting old crappy content? What is the right way to do it? We've got people talking about, I've been blogging for 17 years. I cringe when I look at some of my old posts. So Eric, let's talk. And then Susanna said, is it okay to no index and or make private rather than delete old posts? So Mike gave us his opinion. We'll allow him to come back in a second.
Open
Eric,
the can
what do
of
you
worms
think?
here.
Oh, no. We're talking about SEO. Did we not? Was this whole episode not just an enormous fun can of worms? It was just, yeah, Eric, go.
No, so I don't actually significantly disagree with what Mike said. I think overall, what he's saying is you have to know when to delete your old crappy content. And that is the part that I try to touch on in my blog post. There's safe ways to delete your content. You need to make sure it doesn't have backlinks to it. You need to make sure you don't have internal links pointing to something, or you're going to create a bunch of dead links. And you need to make sure that post doesn't get traffic. If you are confident in all three of those things, delete it and it will have no impact on your life. It might help, but really the most important thing is removing the links to that content. That is what I try to stress in my blog post. You linking to something is, remember, you telling Google, this thing exists and I am passing my authority to it. That is basically what a link does in Google's mind. Stop telling them it exists. So we have content from 2006 on the Hollywood Gossip. It's absolutely terrible. So we stopped linking to it ourselves on the homepage. We get rid of any archives that are older than, I think, 12, because how relevant is that celebrity gossip? But we don't delete it, and you'll be surprised how often a Z-lister ends up back in the spotlight from some inane thing that they've done, and we suddenly get a spike in traffic. And that's because we haven't deleted it, and instead we just don't link. And if you really go with the philosophy of removing links to something, and there are no backlinks to it, then I will say it is, and there's no traffic, then it is fine to delete.
Okay. Mike, do you have a rebuttal on that or anything you want to add?
Listen, I think there's two separate conversations. So I would strongly, the way that I'm looking at this, first of all, is from an SEO angle. But second of all, I'm looking at it from an overall site quality. Like, that's what we're talking about, is the quality of your site, right? And again, this is not, and I know some SEO stuff is like things that we think Google thinks, and some stuff is they will actually say it, right? Whether it's on Twitter with John, I don't know how to pronounce, is Mueller or Miller? Like he has said in these Google Hangouts, we are grading your site as a whole, right? If you have a ton of low quality content on your site, that content is hurting your site. You can go look it up. He has said this multiple times. So I'm working first from that perspective, right? Overall quality, right? Quality, think about your site as a whole. Do you have a lot of bad content on your site? So and I think most sites do, right? Depending on when you started blogging, when you started learning about SEO. Right. And this whole thing is called the content audit. This could literally take 3 hours to talk about. So that's kind of where I'm starting from at the top. If you want to do a content audit on your site, I guess I'm trying to think of a short way to talk about this. The way that I would think about it is, do you have poor old content? And then that's where Eric's getting into the details. It's like a checklist. Well, do you have any backlinks to it? Then you probably don't want to delete it. Internal links, you're going to want to remove. Are you getting traffic from Pinterest? Well, then maybe you'll no index it because you want that post on your site. You want Pinterest sending you traffic, but you want Google to ignore it, right? So there's definitely caveats. There's definitely like a checklist you could run through that, I mean, honestly, it would take forever to talk about right now. So there's definitely ways to go about it. I just mean from a quality perspective, I don't want crappy content on my site because it's going to hurt my SEO. That's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it.
Eric, anything to add there?
Hollywood Gossip does not have crappy content. How could you? When I say 2006 wasn't our best years, it's maybe it's just not as relevant now. It's still wonderful content about Lindsay Lohan.
But that's a good point. Or irrelevant content, right? Because think about it, so many bloggers switch their. I used to write about this, or maybe some bloggers, they used to treat their site as like a diary, right? 300 words on what I had for lunch, right? It's totally irrelevant, right? I would strongly consider getting rid of that type of content. If it doesn't have backlinks, if it's not blah blah blah, with all the caveats, assuming.
We have got first, I'm going to jump in and say, having read Eric's blog post a couple of times where he talks about no index or don't link rather than delete, mainly it's talking about not spending a significant amount of your very limited time going through and obsessing over content that you don't I don't like that anymore. Well, write something new as opposed to spending a whole lot of time going through and trying to go through the things that, Sarah said, remember that early blogging book, Nobody Cares What You Had for Lunch. Okay. We have people that are asking a lot of follow-up questions about getting that modified date versus published date. They're asking with Trellis, does changing the date read to Google as modified? How does it work? People are wondering how to get the posts that they've edited back into their feed, back onto their homepage feed. What do we need to do here? Are there things that are, do we have a plugin? Help.
I'm gonna let Eric handle any schema. Like I know my blind spots, so like technical stuff and like schema stuff. Eric, you can handle those questions.
Everything we answered is a new can of worms that I realized I shouldn't have brought that up. My pet peeve was even irrelevant to the question, and I brought this on myself. So Trellis is designed to allow you to pick whether you show your published, modified, or both. And that when you're doing that, that's not the schema. That's actually what you're showing in the header to Google. Google's best practices tells you to do both, but sometimes you do both. They like to stick with the publish date. So I found a lot of publishers will switch to modified. But it's important to note that with Trellis, it's only outputting in the header. The actual schema, which is generally going to be covered by your SEO tool. So something like a Yoast. Again, I'm giving so much free publicity to Yoast and SEMrush. I want my kickback. Those tools will output what's called article schema, and they're going to automatically output both the published and modified dates for you. So that's not a thing you're going to need to stress about. And again, Rank Math, All-in-One SEO, can't remember the names of the 900 other ones. They're all going to do the same thing. They're all going to output that article schema, and they're all going to already output published and modified for you. So really what you want is your theme, most likely, to show the modified date if you made a significant change.
Mike, anything to follow up on that? We have more questions just flowing in on this.
No, Eric can handle schema.
Okay. Adriana said, if you just change the date but leave the pictures you originally uploaded, your images will still have the initial date. So unless you remove and re-upload the images, there's no point to change the published date, right?
I wouldn't try to be lying to Google, and that's not what you're doing. If you're just modifying something, again, WordPress and your SEO plugin will automatically take care of this for you. It's going to indicate you updated it. You're not trying to lie to them by saying this is my modified date. You went in, you modified your post. That's okay. Don't stress if you have some photos in there that maybe give away the fact it's an article from 2004. Google's not angry you wrote the article in 2004. They're happy that you updated in 2021.
And look, part of the reason this is somewhat important is, think about when someone is Googling a term, these dates are getting pulled into the search, right? So if your article is showing from 2006 and my article is showing from 2021, guess who's going to get the click, right? That's really what, at least from my perspective, why this is important, right? And this is kind of just SEO in general, and what I see is that people get so stuck on kind of the technicalities on the what, right? Like that picture about the images, but think about the why. Like, why is this important, right? We want to show that we have fresh content, updating a post. We want to show Google that we're consistently updating our content, that our content is up to date, and Google's going to pull that date in the search. And again, a newer date is going to more likely get the click than a date that appears to be outdated because it was written in 2004. So think about, again, I always come back to think about what the user is going to see in the search results, what they're going to see on your page, because the click will, and this is something I don't think Google will confirm, but the click, right, Google's going to see who's getting the click, who's not getting the click in terms of their rankings.
All very helpful. We're going to, guys, we have more and more questions about dates and our modified dates and what if I have Squarespace and what about my dates on Squarespace. We're going to move ahead because we have a lot more ground to cover. We'll follow up when we can. And Nat says, would you guys pay for backlinks to grow authority? Natural links are dead nowadays. Eric, what do you think?
Oh man, no, I would not pay. I would not pay for links in general. I don't think you're ever going to be buying quality links. I think there are exceptions, and you can hire companies that may do more of like a PR style where they'll reach out and get you featured and get links that way. But for the most part, you're just paying for like, I don't know, a link farm out of like, I don't know, India or Russia, who knows where they're using these days. It's not going to be the quality links that you want, it's not going to help you.
Okay, Mike, same question to you.
Yeah, I found the question. So this is in like 30 words, this is a very loaded question. So what I pay for backlinks. So I think when people say pay for backlinks, they mean like gray hat or black hat or whatever. So no, you don't want to pay someone $30 for a guest post, right? And the reason we don't want to do that, A, is because Google's very, very, very smart. Like, this worked 5 years ago. And listen, I've been doing this for 10 years. I used to pay for links on like my old niche sites that no longer exist because they probably got penalized, right? So Google is very, very smart now. Do not pay for spammy links, right? Google is going to catch you. And part of the reason they're going to catch you is because if someone's selling you a link for $15, they're selling that to 10,000 other people too, right? So your guest post is going to come along on that site with 1,000 other crappy posts, right? And they call that like the link neighborhood. Like you don't want to be in a bad link neighborhood, right? Because Google is going to see, well, there's tons of random stupid links on this page. We're going to penalize everyone, right? So no, don't pay for bad backlinks. The second point I would make, and Eric touched on this a little bit, there are definitely, and this is like more of an advanced thing. You can hire people to do outreach for you, right? That's different than paying for backlinks, right? And there's agencies that do this, where you create like a piece of link bait or a piece of epic content with the purposes of emailing. This is cold email outreach, emailing people saying, oh, I created this cool thing. Do you want to check it out? Right. So that's like more white hat link building, where you're not going to pay for the link. You're going to publish something great and share it with a bunch of people who probably don't want to hear from you anyway. And you can pay people to run that process for you, right? Create the content. You publish the content. They find the email addresses. They send the emails. They do the follow-ups, right? So they're building backlinks in a white hat way for you, right? So those services exist. I've used them. You'll get decent white hat links, and I'm going to put that in quotes. It's not going to be cheap. I guarantee you there's not one person on this live that is willing to pay $180 for a link. And that's what it's going to cost you. So there are ways to pay for outreach services. That's how I would phrase it. And then the third part of this question, natural links are dead. I mean, they're definitely not dead. You can get, Help a Reporter Out is, I have a personal finance site, and I'm not like a known personal finance person by any means. And I've gotten links from CNBC, Bankrate, creditcards.com, MSNBC, Reader's Digest, right? These are all natural, high authority backlinks. So it's definitely not dead. But that was a good question packed into 50 words.
Miriam says, meta descriptions for each page. How important are those? Eric.
So first I want to clarify that meta descriptions do not directly affect your ranking. So you're not putting in a meta description and suddenly improving your ranking. What those are meant to do is to tell Google, this is my preferred snippet to show on the search results pages. And just as Mike was referring to before with those dates make your thing more clickable, having garbage meta description could certainly hurt you. So I would say it's important for any of your high ranking stuff. You do want to go in and change that meta description because you have a chance of that showing up if Google doesn't think it's smarter than you, which it often does, and picks a different description. But if they're going to end up using your description, use that to your advantage. Come up with something you think is going to make someone click onto your post and not the other 9 on that page. And don't stress too much about whether it's going to hurt your rankings. Another advice is put your keyword in there, because Google, I don't even know if they still do this, but they'll definitely more likely to choose it if it has your keyword, and they're going to bold it. So meta descriptions important on your top ranking stuff, but again, don't stress if you're missing it on, I don't know, a page that isn't ranking. That's not the reason it's not ranking.
Yeah.
Mike, same to you. Anything on meta descriptions? And then we had a follow-up from Miriam is, do you have to have a keyword for each page, like your about page or your contact page?
So on the meta descriptions, it's not gonna, it's basically one of those things that everyone does. You don't have to, but everyone has to do it. It's not going to improve your ranking, right? It's like at all. It's like one of those base things that everyone who knows anything about SEO is going to do, right? So yes, I think you should have a meta description. It takes 2 seconds. It's not going to improve your ranking. Google 50% of the time is not going to even use your meta description. They're going to use whatever they want. Where it could come into play, as Eric said, is the click. Like if your meta description is so good that it enticed someone to click, I guess that's possible. That's where it comes into play. But these are the little things that I'm not going to say they don't matter, but it's things that everyone who knows anything about SEO is going to do this. Like they're going to fill in their meta description. So in that regard, it's not going to help you. It's not going to give you a leg up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yes, I fill in my meta descriptions. Yes, I include my keyword. Yes, they appear in the search results. I guess that's kind of the biggest takeaway because they do appear in the result. Well, sometimes if Google decides to use it. But as Eric said, it's not going to I filled my meta description and I'm going to rank on page 1, right? That's not really how it works.
It's just another grain of sand in the entire beach of our SEO life. But it's one that we can actually impact. It's not vague, it's there. And you can frame your content for potential readers on your search results, potentially if Google decides to pull it. All right. Kippy says, recipes use the recipe card as the meta description. Can we change that, Eric?
Recipe cards use the...
It's saying that that in recipes, somehow it sounds like her recipe card is automatically getting pulled as the meta description for her posts.
That has to be something custom. Maybe that's like a WP Recipe Maker integration with Yoast or something, but that's not standard. In Yoast or whatever, again, I gotta stop using that one. Whatever SEO plugin you're using, there's gonna be a section where you fill out your meta description. That should overwrite whatever's in your recipe card. I'm not familiar with how that's being set.
Mike?
No, I don't know if I'm breaking up or someone's breaking up, but I mean, yeah, I don't really, this is kind of a very, very specific question that's kind of specific to someone's singular post, so it's really hard to answer. It could be that Google's pulling it. I don't really know. It could be theme related or plugin related, but it's tough to tell without really knowing the post.
So we're going to take that recipe card question, use it as a segue here to one of Eric's myths, which I'd like to hear from Mike on, which is that recipe cards make you rank better in general.
Look, the way that I look at do I need to have this or does this help that is what is Google? And this is the good news about SEO is that Google's never going to tell us the answer to that question. What Google has to tell us is who is ranking on page 1 for every single keyword that you Google, right? So if you have a specific recipe or maybe it's any recipe, and what I would do, and I'm not a recipe blogger or food blogger, I am going to Google whatever keyword I'm looking at, right? And I'm going to look at the top 5 results and I'm going to see do they have a recipe card? Well, if they do, guess what? I'm going to put one in my post. I'm not saying they're ranking in the top 5 because of that recipe, but I'm saying I want to at least match the elements. And again, excuse me, I'm not a food blogger, but I'm assuming most recipes have those recipe cards. So to answer your question specifically, I can't say because I don't think Google has ever said, but think about it from, again, the user perspective and what else Google is ranking. Does a user, when they Google for your recipe, do they want to find a recipe card? Does it make their life easier to get through your content? That's how I would think about it. Part 1. Part 2 is what else is ranking in Google? Are there 10 results and none of them have recipe cards? That might tell me it might not be as important. Do all 10 of them have a recipe card? That probably tells me that, yes, I want to put one in mine.
Eric, recipe card.
So I think okay, first I'm going to say what Mike just said is perfect. Always look at what the top 10 results are. I've been saying that, I think, throughout this entire talk. That is a great way to value what Google is looking for on that search term. Remember, you have to do that on each search term. So I think I bungled when I gave you this myth. What I meant to say is, does it matter which recipe card you're using?
Oh.
So whoops,
Oops.
Sorry. That was my myth. And that is not just because of Create, which we happen to run here. I know a lot of bloggers will go and switch, or now they don't do it as much, but they used to switch recipe cards all the time because, I don't know, this certain one was running WP Tasty or this one was running WPRM. I just think that at the end of the day, schema, as Google will tell you, isn't your actual ranking factor. Schema just makes you eligible for different search appearances, as they call them. You'll get into the recipe carousel up top. So you definitely do want a recipe card to make sure you get into the recipe carousel. What I'm trying to say is don't stress if you're running the wrong one. Obviously, I want everyone to run Create. It's ours, but it doesn't matter if you're not, because as long as they're outputting the schema, that's all Google is looking for out of your recipe card. So pick your recipe card based upon other features. They're all, any of the popular ones are going to already output the schema that you need. You don't need to switch, is what I'm saying, unless it's to create, because there's other cool reasons to switch to create. But that was my myth, is that the recipe card, at the end of the day, the schema that is outputted is what matters. And the same applies to your SEO tool. You don't need to switch to Yoast or switch from Yoast to something else unless you no longer like Yoast because it broke your site. I don't know why you chose, or you didn't like the payment method, whatever it is. If you have a good reason to leave it, you can, but chances are they're all outputting the same thing at the end of the day. And what you care about is what it's outputting to Google, not which tool you're running.
Ali says, can we get penalized for using recipe cards for non-recipe posts? I've noticed some big bloggers will add in a recipe card to their posts for like roundup posts, even though the recipe card doesn't actually contain a recipe.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just going to say, I've firsthand seen this. If you use recipe schema and non-recipe based things, getting what's called it's going to be a manual penalty against you, and you're going to lose access to all of your rich snippets or all of your search appearances. So you won't get any recipes, but Google will tell you if they're dinging you for that. And I think the famous one I've seen is someone put a dog food in a recipe card and they got dinged because it's only supposed to be human consumable recipes. So yeah, a lot of people used to use recipes for like their how-to crafts and they were getting in trouble, which is why with Create, why we built how-to schema before Google even supported it, just to get bloggers to stop doing that. So you can get into trouble if you're using recipes for non-recipe posts. Don't do it.
And then here's one more follow-up question on that. We are over time, guys. Thank you for hanging out. There's so many questions. Mediavine list versus a regular bullet point list, referring to a Create list. Is there a reason when you should use one over the other?
Whatever you think is the better user experience is what I'm always going to go with. If it's something that is better served by a bunch of short bullets, like here are the ingredients or materials I used, then go with a bulleted list. That's what they're meant for. If you want the more visual style of a list, because I don't know, you're showing the top 20 whatever tech gadgets of 2021, then you're going to want the visual list that Create offers you, and that's going to mark it up in what's called item list schema. That's a lot better for if you have 20 actual, you're a roundup, basically. That's what lists are made for. If you're doing a list or a roundup, if you're doing bullets inside of a post, you don't need to use a Create list.
Excellent. Okay. This is Timothy Dahl. Really quickly, he said, Ahrefs is capable of many things, but what is the core information you pull from it to help support your SEO efforts, Mike?
Well, look, they've got several tools. They've got a keyword research tool where you can do like your manual keyword research. They have a competitor tool where I can plug any site on the internet into the tool. It's going to tell me what that site is ranking for. They have a backlink tool, obviously, if I want to try to spy on competitors, what kind of backlinks they're getting, how they're getting their backlinks, right? It's not going to pull all of the backlinks, but it pulls a good amount. They have a huge database. They have a content explorer feature, which is kind of like a mini search engine, where you can just literally search for anything and it'll have the Ahrefs metrics like traffic and domain rating. I don't want to get too off course here, but there's a really cool, it's called Content Explorer. They have a rank tracker. So if you want to track where your keywords are ranking in Google, they have that built into the tool. So they have a ton of good features, and SEMrush, I think, has many, if not all of the same features. So again, in my opinion, those are the top two. I just personally use Ahrefs.
Okay,
I'm about ready to switch over because there's a couple tools you mentioned.
I saw your eyes light up on a couple of things that he said, sparkling like it was not Christmas morning, because that is not a Jewish holiday. Eric, so we are about.
So my website wasn't so dumb, huh? Okay.
No, I need it. I would have been confused had that not been there. We are about out of time. This has been a amazing hour packed with lots of information. I think we definitely need to do it again, which all the questions will show. And so we'll have to twist Mike's arm and get him back here one more time. But before we go, I will take you saying yes publicly if you would like to.
I see a lot of familiar faces in here. There's a lot of people from my group, so I appreciate you guys showing up. Ali, Lisa.
Okay, last thing for both of you before we move on. And I want to say also, we apologize if we didn't get to your question today. We will definitely do this again. And thank you to everyone for watching for the last few months during the Summer of Live. It's our 4th season. We had a great time. We will be back with Teal Talks in the fall, about mid-September, the 12th, Tuesday the 12th. So stand by for announcements on that. But before we go, guys, we are approaching magic time for all content creators, for the majority of them, which is Q4. We know that the advertisers are going to be spending a lot of money. Everyone's going to be online looking for the things that lifestyle bloggers write about. What is one thing that you would recommend our audience of content creators do now to position themselves for Q4? Mike, I'll start with you.
Look, so I come at stuff from an SEO angle. So my thing is I want to get up as much high quality content published on my site as fast as possible, right? To give us a chance. What are we in now? August, right? Depending on your site's authority and how old your site is, it's usually going to take a little bit of time to rank in Google. So if you're thinking about content that you want to rank and get traffic for Q4, just think in the back of your head, it's going to take at least several weeks, if not longer, in order to get that stuff ranking in Google. But again, at the end of the day, at least the way that I build my sites, it's just more content, more high quality content, day after day, week after week, month after month. That's how you kind of build that library of content that really gets momentum going and gets you ranking, whether it's Q1 or Q4.
So chances are it's going to be seasonal content that is ranking well for you in Q4. So maybe take this time to go and update some of those posts, not to be confused with republishing them. Use all this great advice you got on publish versus modified dates. I would get ready to start touching those posts up and getting them fresh in Google's mind, because chances are a lot of them are going to make reappearances. So make sure they're optimized for ads, optimized for SEO. Good chance to relive that old Q4 content while you're making new Q4 content. So double dip.
We love double dipping. It's delicious. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Thank you. It's been a great time. Enjoy the rest of your summer, you guys, and we'll see you soon.